All right, so here we are in the round 1 of the event against Ziggy Stardust. We're doing a replay though. I'm mixing up how to kind of do things, and I may or may not have started the league without hitting record. So, here we are. All right, so let's see what's going on. To reveal Yorion as per usual. Hands, reasonable. It's not the best, but it does have interaction against multiple pieces. We also have Caracas in case when early show and tell and they don't omni us. But the planes into Saga, make a guy, make a guy, make a guy, make a guy is pretty good. So they just went ahead and pondered. They chose not to shuffle. We go ahead, play a plains, pass the turn. They go ahead, ponder, and then duress our Swords to Plowshares. Pretty simple. Play out the port, which is nice. We get to hit their black source. Because at this point, there's nothing good going on over there, right? We've seen 2 ponders and a duress off basic swamp, so I'm thinking it's some sort of combo. And sure enough, they limb Duel's Vault, which is literally only in a combo. And they don't even have to put anything on the bottom. They just draw it like a jerk. Play a land, right? So at this point, Yamamoto's replays just terrible. We play out the Urza Saga, and they brainstorm at a turn. We go ahead and port their black source, which probably puts us in a good spot. Unfortunately, their Limbu's Vault was very good. Dark Ritual, which never goes well. Summoner's Pact for the Witherbloom, and then they Witherbloom combo us. Okay, it's cool. So game. The good news is that we it's a pretty good matchup. Bad news is we just lost in like 2 minutes. There we go. And I'll be back for game 2. All right, so we are back for game 2. See what happens. We reveal Yorion, and we keep a very good hand, which has multiple hate pieces in it. Sanctum Prelate on 2 is very difficult for them to beat. We also have a removal spell for Solitude, or in Solitude, and we have a fast clock with the Stoneforge Mystic. But Deafening Silence is interesting because they can go off around it, but it keeps them from killing us like on turn 1 or 2. Really all we need to do. They take the Stoneforge Mystic, which tells me they probably have another piece of discard or interaction for this prelate. So they either have a like a massacre, or they have something else. So here we draw Numazawa's Jite naturally. There's no reason for us not to play it out. So that's what we do. Like if they have days, okay. But I would be shocked if this deck was also playing. Sure enough, they crack their fetch and they play the Witherbloom, cool, which is fine because if they go off, they can't go off next turn and play discard. So we just go ahead and put Yorion into our hand so we have an extra card for this Solitude, because this means next turn we can play Saga and play Prelate on 2 and still have up this Solitude, because the Deafening Silence means that they can't really kill us right now. Okay, and so I'm 1000% not going to die this turn. They preordain, put 2 cards on top, which is not my favorite. They do attack with the Witherbloom. We draw another Solitude, which is great because they don't know about the second one. And now we get to play out the Sanctum Prelate, put it on 2, which means they can't combo us, 1, because of Deafening Silence, but 2, because Sanctum Prelate means they can't even cast it. So they have to be able to like massacre something else. But if they massacre, then they also kill their Witherbloom. So I'm pretty happy. And we're obviously not blocking with the Witherbloom or blocking with the Prelate because we can just equip the Jite next turn. Cool. So they had Massacre, which is fine. It means they have to reassemble again. And here we don't even have to do anything. Okay, so they have another Witherbloom. Is fine because we have this Solitude up, and now we can play this plains, pass the turn, and now we have double Solitude up and Deafening. Cool. Once again, we know we're not dying, and I don't have to respond to the Witherbloom with a Solitude because they can't cast any more spells anyway. Don't swing in because we can just make a 2/2. So what do? I decide the 1 extra construct not worth it. We just cast the Solitude, and so I'll see you in game 3. Game 3. Let's see what happens. 1, we're definitely on the draw. We decide to keep this hand because it has 1, ways to disrupt their mana, but 2, it has 2 removal spells. And this deck doesn't really have a fair plan, so you can just kill their Witherbloom and go that way. So we play the Caracas because there is a real chance that we don't have to play out of planes this game, because if we don't hit double white spells soon, we can just Urza Saga for an Ether Vial, and it puts us in pretty good shape. They ponder, pass the turn, which we play out the port, of course. All right, well, now we're going to have to play into this massacre because we're Clave likely. What happens, depending on what they do, we could also Wasteland plus Port and just keep the party going. They fetch after Port them, Brainstorm. So they have basic Swamp, so Wasteland's not looking super promising here, but that's a pretty good target. Thoughtseize, so they get to see 3 removal spells. This is tough, right? Because we definitely want to leave up a Swords to Plowshares, but it's a question of, so we play out a Plains, leave it up so they can't waste us and do other things. We go ahead and grab the Cauldron, because this means we get to leave up Swords to Plowshares and we get to just continue doing our thing. We can next turn we can either actually Wasteland plus Swords to Plowshares and put Cauldron into play, and Cauldron does not die. Cauldron is a big boy or girl. I don't know what Cauldron identifies as, but Cauldron is big, right? And indestructible. Cauldron is a 3-turn clock by itself. This mom makes it much harder for them to actually answer the Stoneforge, which, is nothing new. We're going to get to slam jam this Cauldron into play. It's a question of, do we Wasteland them? I think it is good to Wasteland them because that way we get the green, which means that they have to use their Lotus Petal in order to get the Witherbloom into play. But the reality is we have the Swords Plowshares up, and then we have Skyclave as well. So if we hit a white source, we also just get to, as the game proceeds, you can kind of see we get to, this is a 2-turn clock, right? We attack for 6 and then 5. That's assuming our Stoneforge dies, and that should absolutely seal. Attack for 6, play the Urza Saga, and pass the turn. We get Port the Urza Saga and leave up double Swords to Plowshares. And opponent preordains. Deck's great. Everything's great.